Trump threatens to cut off WHO funding for being China-centric. U.S. President Donald Trump threatened to withhold funding from the World Health Organization during a White House press briefing on April 7. He criticized the Global Health Agency's approach to the virus, saying the United Nations body could have called it months earlier. He said they would have known and they should have known, and they probably did know, so we'll be looking into that very carefully. He told reporters at a press briefing that the government was going to put a hold on money sent to the WHO. Once he was asked if cutting funding to the WHO during a pandemic would be wise, Trump backtracked on his earlier statements. He said, "I'm not saying I'm going to do it, but we're going to look at it." According to Trump, they will be investigating the WHO and will look at ending funding. In an earlier tweet, Trump had attacked the WHO by saying they really blew it. He tweeted, "For some reason, funded largely by the United States, yet very China-centric." The South China Morning Post reports that the White House has already proposed to cut U.S. funding to the WHO in their 2021 budget from $122 million to less than $58 million. However, that cut in funding still has to be authorized by the U.S. Congress. Trump is not the only conservative who has denounced the WHO's actions. According to NDTV, U.S. Republican Senator Marco Rubio had previously called for WHO Director General Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus to resign for allowing Beijing to use the WHO to mislead the global community. Conservatives have repeatedly attacked the WHO for allegedly depending on unreliable data from China. They have also criticized the WHO for pushing back on travel bans, with Ghebreyesus asking for solidarity, not stigma, as late as January 30. The WHO warned that travel bans to affected areas or denial of entry to passengers coming from affected areas are usually not effective. They also warned that travel bans could have a significant economic and social impact. On January 31, the U.S. government began to restrict the entry of some travelers from China. However, travelers from China were reportedly not screened properly, and the U.S. declined to use the WHO's testing kits, failing to implement widespread testing for COVID-19.